edition of Tailpipes and Tacos. It's the in-wheel time car talk show. Just ahead, more interesting car talk with guests from today's fine event here at Tailpipes and Tacos. Konrad has the in-wheel time car clinic coming up. We'll also have this week's auto news. Howdy, along with Mike out of This World Mars, King Konrad DeLong. We need more Jeff Zekin. I'm Don Armstrong. Glad you could join us today. Mr. Mars, who's our next guest?
This is Mr. Dean Forbes. He rolled in on this really nice 1956 Continental Mark II sitting out here.
He owns Forbes magazine, doesn't he?
I'm very, very distantly related. I would be considered the poor relations.
Poor, yeah. Well, that car's not. I'll tell you that.
Dean,
Yeah.
bring your microphone in closer so we can hear you better.
There you go. Right
there.
A little
Lower.
There you go. Right there.
Right there.
Perfect.
Okay.
So tell us about the car, a 56.
Yes, it's a 1956, which is the first year of the Continental Mark II automobile.
There was a Mark I.
Well,
They
not
didn't call it
really.
that, though.
We call it a Mark I, which would be the first car that Edsel Ford brought out for 1940 and 41 and then through 48. And because his grandson, Edsel's son, Bill Ford, was put in charge of bringing this car out to go head-to-head with Cadillac. So they decided to call it a Mark II because his father had the first one. So
Gotcha.
Because the first one was just called the Continental.
It's called first 40 was a Lincoln Zephyr Continental, and then in 41 it actually became just the Continental.
Quite a fan of the customizers.
Yes, indeed. The other interesting fact was that when they brought this car out, they had to build a separate factory to build the car. So most people, when they see this car, will say, it's a Lincoln Continental. And I have to kind of correct them and say, no, it is a Continental, and it was just a Continental from 56 to 57. Now, to understand the history is that you have, of course, the Mark I, II, III, IV, V that you see. And so it gets a little confusing because Henry Leland created the Lincoln Motor Company, and this year is the 100th anniversary for when Ford bought Lincoln from Henry Leland at a receivership. And the interesting thing, a lot of people don't know where the name Lincoln came from, and actually it came from Henry Leland when he was founding his car company. He decided that he would name the car Lincoln after the first president, his favorite president that he could vote for, which was Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's how the name Lincoln
What a great story.
came
I had
about.
no clue. Did you?
I knew it was named after Lincoln, but I didn't know the piece of it that it was because that was the first guy Leland could vote for.
So since this is the 100th anniversary, most of the Lincoln dealerships here, like Planet Lincoln and Bayway Lincoln and what have you, they've had some celebrations this year. And fortunately, they've invited the Lincoln and Continental Owners Club to participate. And so my car and several of our club cars, they have had on the showroom for their celebration.
Oh, neat.
So that's been really a neat experience.
How did you come across the car, and when?
Well, the first time I ever saw one of these cars, I was in the 4th grade. We were living in West University Place. And in those days, I took a city bus to school. I was attending
I did the same
Second
thing.
Baptist Elementary School when Second Baptist was downtown.
Yep.
And we used to go through a real exclusive area by Rice University. And as we would round the corner, there would invariably be a gentleman coming out in one of these cars. And I didn't know what it was. I'd never seen one on the street before, but I just loved the lines of it. And so I moved up to the front of the bus. It'd just make my day if I could see it. And he would be pulling out, and if he was just a tad late, he'd pull out behind us. But every morning, I thought it was the most beautiful car I'd ever seen. I said, one of these days I'm going to own one of those cars. Now, this guy had a three-piece suit on and a kind of a Frank Sinatra hat on.
Yeah.
And in those days in the 50s, nobody wore a three-piece suit except lawyers and bankers.
Yep.
So I'm sure he was one of those, okay? Little did I know it'd be 42 years later before I'd actually own one. You know, life gets in the way. Marriage, a war, military
Sure.
service, job, 5 kids, and what have you. But on Father's Day, 1999, this was my gift to myself.
Good
Oh,
for
cool.
you. Where did you find the car?
Well, you're not going to find one of these on a used car lot.
Right.
So I joined the Lincoln Continental Owners Club, Gulf Coast region, which is here in Houston. And I put the word out I was interested in finding one. And I was told, you need to go see Ron Stein. And I said, who's Ron?
We are very familiar with
Yep,
Mr.
yeah.
Stein.
I said, who's Ron Stein? They said, well, he's a kind of a real estate guy and into some other things. He's got, I think, 3 of them. He might be willing to sell one. Great. Made an appointment, went and saw him. He already sold one of them, so I only left 2. And my favorite color is a cobalt blue. That's what I really wanted. But my second favorite color was black. So he had a black one, and I like the black one with the red and white interior. It looks a little more masculine, you know. So, but he had this one, and so he's a hard negotiator, and so it took us 2 weeks to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
And so I bought the car from him.
Very nice. In
Now-
99 you bought the car?
1999.
Nice.
Now, I can trace the entire ownership of the car. I'm the 4th owner. Every owner prior to me has kept the car till they died.
Oh,
I
Lord.
guess I'm going to have to keep the string going.
Well, there's a goal for you.
That's it. Yeah, a
Now,
living goal.
Now, my wife is here, and it's an interesting thing. When I had them unloading the car at the house, she came out and said, "Oh, my God, what a beautiful car. Oh, it looks like a woman's car. It's got the white and gray interior. Thank you for getting me this car."
Wrong.
I said, damn, I knew I should have gotten the one with the red and white interior.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know what? That can be fixed at the upholstery shop.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So, and I assume that it's got a V8 in it?
Yes, it's the largest V8 made in 1956, 368 cubic inches. And it left the factory with 285 horsepower.
That's a lot back then.
Now, in 57, they raised the compression ratio, and it made 300 horsepower. And I was amazed that the car would do 125 off the showroom floor back then.
Wow.
And we're talking about a car that weighs 5,400 pounds empty. So by the time you put gas and oil
And people.
you're pushing close to 6,000 pounds.
Yep.
That's like a truck,
Yep.
you know. So it's a wonderful
Is
highway
it
car.
got a 2-speed or a 3-speed in it?
Well, that's an interesting story. The car starts off in normal driving in second. It has a 3-speed hydromatic transmission,
Okay.
but it only shifts once, about 40, 45. So most people think it's a 2-speed, but it's not. It's actually a 3-speed. And I've had people in car magazines write that it's got a 2-speed transmission. Well, that's because they drove it and didn't realize that in normal driving, it starts out in
But if
second.
you-
It has
if
so
you-
much torque, you know.
Right.
But if you thrash it, it'll jump down.
Oh
to
yeah,
first.
if you're at a light and you pedal to the metal, it
Does it
goes
have
to
like a-
first.
does it have
Yes,
like a low
Yes,
one,
it
or-
has a low, and so
Uh-huh.
you can put it in there as well.
Right.
But they
And I know-
wanted it to be a luxury car where you not feel all these shifts, and that's why it only shifts one time.
Was it price competitive to the Cadillac of the day, the
It was
two-door
more.
Cadillac?
It was more expensive than the Cadillac was in the day. Now they tossed the factory $11,000 just to build one of these cars.
Okay.
They sold it for 10, so they're taking $1,000
Loss, yeah.
loss on each one. And so when this car came out, Ford had never painted a car in lacquer. They always used enamel paint, and it was called baked on enamel. They'd put it in the oven, bake the paint onto the car.
Right.
So Bill Ford goes to a company that makes paint and says, I want y'all to create a paint for this new car we're coming out, and I want it to look like they just spray painted it. I want it to be glossy and what have you. And so he went to DuPont. DuPont said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Ford, we make any kind of paint you want, you know." So they came up with a paint called nitrocellular lacquer. And so this is the first car that they painted with lacquer, and it came with 2 undercoats and 8 individually applied hand-rubbed coats of paint on top of that.
Lord.
So
Which
it was
seriously
so
added to the labor cost of the car.
Of course. They built the factory just to make this car, and the car was probably what I would consider the last truly handmade car in America, because basically that's what they had these. And so you could literally take a new dime, walk up to the side of the car, and read the date of the dime in the reflection.
Wow.
Bill Ford also had them put show chrome on this car. Came from the factory with show chrome. Nobody did but the hot rodders and, you know, the modified people. So in the day, it was stunning to see this car, because the shine, the
all I can imagine is the crowd at the showroom when it debuted, probably in the fall of '56 or '55. No, I don't know. It debuted in '55, and you know, back then all the cars debuted in the fall, and all I can imagine is crowds of people in their 1950s pillbox hats, and, dresses, and I'm sure it was a big deal.
It was. The other thing was, not every dealer could even get one of these cars. You had to be a premier dealer. And think about this for a moment. I call it what they would say a lost leader. And they would send out invitations, and people would come to the dealers to see this new car. And you could walk into a dealership and buy 3 '56 T-Birds and still walk out with $1,000 in your pocket
compared
for
to that.
one of those.
Yeah.
So it was to bring people in and then try and sell them. Lincoln made a car in '56 called a Premier, and they made another car called a Capri. So they would try and sell them a T-Bird or Capri or, you know, what have you. But if you were really well-heeled, you know, they'd be more than happy to sell you one of these.
Yeah, so it was their halo car.
Yes,
in its day.
exactly. One other thing is, in 1956, the average price of a new house in America was between $6,000 and $8,000. So this thing is way more than a brand new house. So for the average person, it was way above their means.
Sure.
But that's why Elvis had 2 of them. David Eisenhower had one. Go out to the King Ranch today, in their garage is one. And Elizabeth Taylor had one. And hers is interesting in the fact that she specified that she wanted the car painted the same color of her eyes, and she had these pretty kind of Mediterranean blue eyes. So hers is a totally different paint color than any other car or any paint that was offered at the time. There was another gentleman whose wife liked Helena Rubinstein lipstick.
Lipstick, yes.
Red lipstick,
red.
So he brought the lipstick in and said, I want you to paint this car. I'm going to order it new, and I want you to paint it the color of this lipstick. And, of course, they did.
Well, for
do
that
anything
kind of,
for the right price.
well,
That's right,
and
exactly.
3 times the price of anything on the showroom floor or houses. Yeah, unbelievable.
Another interesting thing is about Cadillac. When this came out in early '55 and '56, they said, oh, my God, we got to have an answer to this car, okay? And so they came out in '57 with the first year of the Cadillac Eldorado Brom. Now,
Or as we like to call it, the Broham.
Broham.
yeah. It cost them $13,000 to build that. They had to sell it for $10,000 to compete with the Mark II. So they're taking a $3,000 loss.
Right.
All of this is about image.
Sure.
Ford, when you ask the American public who makes the most luxurious car, they didn't want to hear Cadillac. They wanted you to say Continental. And, of course, Cadillac, or the standard of the world, what have you. So you have two major corporations going head-to-head over an image, both losing money. And, of course, that only lasted a couple of years because neither company is in the business of losing money. But they did go head-to-head. And so, in my opinion, either one of those cars, the Cadillac Eldorado Braun or the Continental Mark II, if you can find one, you get tremendous value for your money because no expense was spared.
So I heard rumor that you're kind of in the market now for a Cadillac Brougham of the 57 era.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what we're hearing here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I could put that in my garage.
The wife might have something to say
That's
about
right.
that.
Yeah.
Well, Dean, it's great to have you here. We
Okay.
really appreciate you stopping by. Thank you very much.
Well, you also wanted to mention a couple of upcoming shows.
I thought I would. We're going to be leaving here a little bit early because
No.
yes, Commissioner Harris County Precinct 4, Jack Cagle, is having a classic car show today. And it is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
It is totally free. They have crafts, petting zoo, pony rides, and more there. And it's going to be in the Hockley Recreation Complex at 28515 Old Washington Road in Hockley, Texas. And
That's out there. Doesn't A.J. Foyt, doesn't he reside in
He's
Hockley?
in Waller.
Yeah.
Well, Waller.
Yeah, it's kind of Waller, yeah. Also, that particular facility they built, remember the days in the 50s where everybody was into these soapbox derbies?
I wouldn't remember that.
Okay.
Why do I look like that? Yes, I do.
Well, you
remember.
got gray hair like me,
Yeah.
so and so they built this facility, and they actually have these races out there. It's really cool. Except the skateboarders got out there, and boy, they were going down that hill.
No doubt.
And, really fast, so they had to kind of cut that out. But it's an interesting place.
An ice cream social.
And that's going to be September 24th.
Yeah, we have one other event. The Gulf Coast region of the Antique Automobile Company, Antique Automobile Club of America, which is the oldest car club in the United States, they are having an ice cream and hot dog social. It will be in Spring Creek Park at 15012 Brown Road in Tomball from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Rain or shine, they have a big pavilion there.
September 24th.
Next Saturday.
Yeah, next Saturday, September 24th.
And on their
free.
piece of paper, they have a Citroen as the flagship car.
Lord help us. Well, there you go. You got your
Well, thank
plug
you
in.
so much for having me,
Thank
and
you.
I enjoy coming out here.
We appreciate it as well. All right. Thank you. And let's see. Here on the In Wheel Time Car Talk Show, we've got Konrad's Car Clinic. What are we clinicking today?
Well, we're going to talk about how a torque converter works. You know, to better understand what a torque converter does. And people have heard the phrase torque converter. I don't know if they understand exactly what it does. But if you understand how an automatic transmission works, the torque converter kind of is the coupling that allows you to come to a stop in the automatic transmission with an automatic transmission. Where a manual transmission, you'd have to step on the clutch. With a torque converter, it acts as that decoupling piece of it. With just a little pressure on the pedals, the vehicle can be cruising down the highway at 70 miles an hour, or if you step on the brake, come to a complete stop, and you don't have to touch anything. The torque converter is what makes all that possible. Within the torque converter, to make it simple, there's like two fans. One's attached to the engine, and one's attached to the rear tires, and all kinds of other stuff in between. So the torque converter is designed with 3 phases of function. One is stall, and during the stall phase, the engine impeller is turning, but the fan that's attached to the rear tires through the transmission, it doesn't turn because the fan from the engine doesn't put enough pressure on it. So as you accelerate the vehicle, now the engine fan puts enough pressure on the impeller fan that it starts to turn the rear tires, and it actually multiplies the amount of torque available to the engine as it does that. And then at some point, after it finishes multiplying that power, they both come to about the same speed, and that's called the coupling phase. And the coupling phase is what happens at high speeds, where the impeller and turbine speeds are basically rotating at the same time. Now, one of the newer advancements of torque converters that happened back in the 70s and 80s is they actually have a hydraulic manual clutch inside of it, so it does lock up and go 1-to-1. But all of that depends on the fluid inside the transmission. And when a torque converter starts to go bad or starts to have a problem, the warning signs of that can be a shuddering when shifting, a shuddering at speed when it goes into lockup. You can get a humming or a whirring noise from the transmission, or it starts to slip under acceleration, and it starts
What is it that's slipping?
the two impellers aren't keeping their speeds the way they were designed to. So the fluid isn't
Why not?
pushing because the fluid's degrading.
I see.
And as the fluid degrades, it doesn't push.
So sometimes you can stop that slip by putting new fluid in it?
fresh fluid, right?
Really?
So the fluid kind of tells you if it's starting to go bad because it starts to turn dark. It should be generally kind of a clear pink, but as the fluid starts to go bad, it starts to oxidize. So really the key to keeping your torque converter operating correctly and the rest of the transmission operating correctly is timely fluid maintenance on the vehicle, because fluid failure always happens before component
What's
failure.
timely?
I'd say every 30 to 40,000 miles is to change the automatic transmission fluid in your vehicle.
What if you got 66,000 miles on it and it's never been changed?
Everything working fine?
Yeah.
Change it.
Okay.
You know, if
Yeah,
it's got problems, don't change it. Go get it fixed.
We don't know if it's got problems.
Well, if you're driving it and you don't notice any problems driving it, change your fluid. I don't care if it's got 150,000 miles. Put fresh new fluid in it.
Gotcha.
You know, but if it's shifting late, or it's slipping when it's shifting, or it shudders going down the highway, you might want to get it looked at first. But one of the big things going on right now in the industry is what's called torque converter clutch shudder. And the fix for that is changing the fluid in the transmission. Well, yeah, it kind of feels like a misfire when you're going down the highway. When the converter locks up, instead of the clutch locking up, it kind of skips along,
Gotcha.
and it feels like a misfire. And all the manufacturers, Toyota, Honda, GM, Ford, Chrysler, all have technical bulletins out about it. All of the technical bulletins tell you to do the same thing, which is change the fluid.
So
in the
now it's with
transmission.
these new like 9 and 10 speed transmissions.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-speed transmissions are very susceptible to feeling torque converter clutch shudder, because as it gets into the higher gear ratios, the engine RPM drops, so that misfire is what feels like a misfire is much more pronounced.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So that's, what does a torque converter do inside your car?
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. I learned something
Yeah.
new. Well, every time you do this, I always learn something new, because I'm kind of
Perfect.
a dummy when it comes to that. We do have some news headlines this week. Thank God that the strike has been averted with the railroads, because I don't know whether you realize it or not, but the trains that stop you on Main Street in Sugar Land when you're crossing over that railroad track, well, at least in my neighborhood, a lot of the cars leave the port of Houston with cars or trucks in them and go to San Antonio or vice versa. That's all done on rail, and so is the actual parts movement around the country. So U.S. railroad companies, unions representing more than 100,000 workers, reached a tentative agreement. Breakthrough looks to avert labor disruption that risked adding supply chain strains to the largest economy in the world. That would have been an absolute infrastructure and transports about 40% of all long-haul cargo in the U.S., threatening a fresh wave of supply chain woes. We do not need that. Nissan North America recalling 203,000 trucks after the discovery of a pair of potentially faulty parts in the transmission. That could lead to vehicles slipping out of park. NHTSA said the recalls affect 20 to 23 Nissan Titans, 20 to 21 Nissan Frontiers, and 22 to 23 Frontiers. The resistance between the parking rod and wedge inside the transmission could allow for the shifter to move, in
Yikes.
turn allowing the vehicle to slip out of park and potentially roll away. Remedy for the plan has not been released, with Nissan saying one is under development.
Yeah,
Other
comes
recalls
with wheel chocks.
wheel chocks, yeah. Here in town, not too big of a problem unless you're in some sort of parking
San
garage.
Francisco, yeah.
But yes, places like San Francisco or the mountains of Colorado be a problem. Volkswagen Atlas and Atlas Crossport being recalled for loose hitch bolts that may allow the trailer to separate from the vehicle on the 22 model year. Lexus NX250, NX350, and the Tundra parking brake may fail. I think that includes that one that I just told you about. Well, did you happen to see the 7th generation Ford Mustang that debuted this week?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Biggest changes to the 2024 Pony Car unveiled Wednesday at the Detroit Auto Show are with the interior, which now offers an optional digital cockpit with 2 connected, customizable screens. An electronic drift brake is among the available upgrades. But the biggest news may be what Ford is still putting under the hood. Updated versions of the current model's 2.3-liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder and the 5-liter Coyote V8 with a manual transmission.
No V6.
No V6 and no electric. That's the big news. And everybody thought, oh, well, here comes the electric. No.
Well, they got the Mach-E.
Yeah, but
they do
it's
have
not
the
a Mustang.
Mach-E.
No, I know that.
and-
but they
Well,
got
they
the
call
Mach-E.
it a Mustang.
They consider it a
yeah.
Mustang.
Yeah, well.
It's so stupid. But at any rate. So,
But they're also going to build a couple of pure off-road racing versions of it for drag racing and for road racing. Build a GT3 and a GT4 model.
sales have gone down the toilet of the current model.
You can't say that.
No, I can't, but I
just
did.
did.
Quick break now. You're on the In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show, coming to you live today from the Loopy Tortilla in Katy and Tailpipes and Tacos. Back after this break.
Starting to work on your Christmas calendar? Be sure to add the next Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise-In Saturday, December 17th. You'll want to attend Tailpipes and Tacos Christmas Edition at the Loopy Tortilla in Katy, 8 to 11 a.m. It's the only place cruisers compete for Loopy's Chili Pepper trophies and other prizes. There's no charge to enter your vehicle for Best Hot Rod, Best Classic, or Best Modern Classic. Tailpipes and Tacos is Houston's coolest and most unique cruise-in and is your opportunity to see the best hot rods, show cars, classics, and resto mods. And get Loopy Tortilla breakfast tacos with adult beverages. There's no entry fee and cars will automatically compete for those much sought-after custom Loopy trophies and other prizes. It happens at the Loopy Tortilla Tex-Mex in Katy on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10. It's the Tailpipes and Tacos Christmas Edition, Saturday, December 17th. The In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show will be there too. Celebrate the Christmas season with friends and family at Tailpipes and Tacos. Saturday morning, December 17th, 8 to 11. We'll see you then, weather permitting. Want to take a minute to tell you about Gulf Coast Auto Shield, a Houston detail company like no other. Gulf Coast Auto Shield offers paint correction services that'll give your car, truck, or SUV a like-new shine. Afterwards, you'll want to protect it with a professionally installed nano-ceramic coating or protection film. Worried about your very expensive windshield getting damaged, broken, or cracked? Let Gulf Coast Auto Shield install Exo Shield, a windshield protection film. Give John Gray a call today or check out their website, gcautoshield.com. Hey, whether you own a new, ultra-expensive, exotic, or a 5-year-old Suburban, Gulf Coast Auto Shield will help keep your investment looking like the day it rolled off the assembly line. Gulf Coast Auto Shield is conveniently located on the South Sam Houston Parkway, just south of I-69, the Southwest Freeway. Meet the staff and check out all of their services online right now at gcautoshield.com. The In-Wheel Time Car Talk Show is now part of the iHeart family. Now you'll have access to 24/7 Car Talk anytime you need a fix. Just download the iHeart Radio app and ask for In-Wheel Time Car Talk, and there we are. Be sure to save us in your iHeart library for instant access. No matter where you are, you have the best Car Talk Show right on your PC, laptop, or mobile device and never have to worry about finding us again. Of course, you can always get access to our video and audio streams via InWheelTime.com and your favorite podcast channel, and all of this is free to you. From the iHeart Radio app, you'll not only hear our Saturday morning live show, but the best shows of the past, updated weekly. Never miss a minute of up-to-date new car reviews, pre-owned reviews, Konrad's Car Clinic, informative interviews, automotive news, and the most fun car talk show on the planet. Just download the iHeart Radio app, search for In Wheel Time Car Talk, save it to your library, and with a tap of the icon, you'll be in touch with your favorite Car Talk team. In Wheel Time Car Talk, streaming now on iHeart.com/In Wheel Time Car Talk.